One. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic Podcast, episode 107 today. Just to let you guys know, my laptop broke, so I'm not going to be able to be showing my face for at least a week. I'm having to do this on my phone, which is a bit terrible, and it sucks. So sorry, ladies and gentlemen, about that. I'll have to sort that out. But anyways, please welcome my wonderful guest today, Alison Morrow. She's very popular for doing, news work. You've probably seen her in a lot of interviews. How are you doing today, Alison? You all good?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
What have you been up to today? Anything much?
I took my daughter to swim lessons. I did a live stream about Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon out at their respective cable outlets, and then how ESPN is firing a bunch of people to cut their budget. And then I jumped on here with you. I folded
Fair
clothes.
enough.
I did a lot of laundry today.
How is that going? Any luck with the success? Is it drying good?
I feel like I'm never done with laundry. That's one of the things I can never finish. It's the second I fold the last t-shirt, the dryer alarm sounds and tells me that I have a whole pile more to fold. So it's never ending. And I only have 2 kids, so I can only imagine. I have a friend who has 8 kids. I can only imagine the amount of laundry they do on a regular basis.
I can't imagine with that, eh? So Alison, since the last time we talked, what have you been up to? It's last time we spoke was like in January. Mm-hmm. What projects have you been doing since then? Since we last talked.
Same old, same old. I've been doing a lot more live streaming. I have 2 kids now. I had a baby in September, so there's just a lot more to do and a lot less time to do it in. And so I've found that going live is a lot easier for me because I can go live on multiple platforms, and then when I'm done, versus recording a video and then uploading it and having to upload it to each platform and write out all the different stuff and do different pictures and comments and all that. So it's just do it live. It's simulcast on all the platforms. And then when you're done, it's over and you move on to the next thing. And that's been the easiest thing for me. I'm not sure if I'll do that forever. There's a lot of stuff that I like to look into if I have time in the future to do more research into, like deeper dives. Right now, it's just doing investigative work that requires hours and hours of research is just not something I have the bandwidth for. So what I can do is what I've been focusing on, and that's finding people who have been censored on the internet, censored on social media platforms, or disparaged in some way by the corporate press, the news outlets in, around the world, not just here, and bring them on and let them explain themselves to the viewers. Go direct with people, let the viewers ask the questions, see if they're interesting or they're liars or they're telling the truth or whatever, to give voice to people who have been in some way mischaracterized or just silenced altogether, and not to necessarily endorse them, but to endorse speech, to endorse the idea that more speech is better than less speech, and that if you want to understand what's going on in the world, even if it takes you to very dark places, there's just no way to do it by silencing people. You have to figure out what's going on by listening to what's around you. And so that's what I do. And that's something that I can do with 2 kids. But right now, my kids are my priority, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, I'm a full-time mom, and I have a babysitter every once in a while, like right now for a little bit, but not that often because, number one, it's important to me to be with my kids more than a babysitter or a daycare center. But also my babysitter goes to school, so she's not available all day long either. So I do what I can, but that's my focus now.
Mm-hmm. I think, freedom of speech is becoming such an important thing lately, because one thing a lot of the media outlets and a lot of the conservative media outlets are not talking about is the horrific, Restriction Act that the government is trying to pass right now, and it's secretly behind the scenes, and that's just terrible. I mean, you can argue the government of the United States has always had the ability to spy on people and always had the ability to track us down, but it's pretty much like the Patriot Act 2.0. But you know, when you look at the TikTok bill, which is being used as a Trojan horse to bring in, this Restriction Act, which is going to allow the government to have more control, possibly over Rumble, possibly over BitChute, possibly over Odyssey. It's just scary, Alison, and it makes me think to myself, that people really should be rising up against that. And it's very good that you're bringing these people on, different point of views, people who have been silenced, and all that stuff. Like, for example, today, Alison, you probably saw. Obviously, we all saw Tucker Carlson got fired, and Don Lemon got fired from CNN. When you look at that's going on at the moment. If you could interview Tucker Carlson right now, what would you want to say to Tucker Carlson? And what information would you like for him to give you about Fox News and stuff that we don't know about? Like, what question would you use to put him on the spot?
Well, I don't believe Tucker was fired. I think he either quit or they decided to leave on mutually decided upon terms. There's something happened today. I believe it was something that happened either today or yesterday that it was like it took everybody by surprise, and it had something to do with either editorial control of his show or it's possible. I read somewhere that there were text messages that he sent that were becoming part of that lawsuit, the Dominion voting machine lawsuit that said nasty things about Fox management. I have a harder time believing that. I think something probably just happened, and it had something to do with Tucker either drawing the line on his show saying this is what I'm going to do, and then management saying no, and then he either decided to just leave, or they were like, you know what, this just isn't a good fit, and he's like, yeah, great, it's not a good fit, and then they just went their separate ways. I don't think he was fired. I don't think Tucker Carlson wanted to stay and they just like canned him, and that a lot of people are like, well, he's just been he's been telling too much truth lately and going to topics that they're uncomfortable with and stepping on too many toes. The reason I don't believe that that's anything that would have caught Fox News Channel by surprise, or that they fired him or anything over that, is because a lot of, I used to work at Fox News Channel 20 years ago. It was a long time ago, but I don't think this particular process has changed. The editorial process when it comes to the big name TV anchors and their opening monologues and whatnot, a lot of this stuff is cleared through the management. And so I don't think anything catches Fox News Channel by surprise. I think they've allowed him to say everything he's been saying. And if there is something that they wanted to censor or silence, it just would have happened. I don't think there was something that happened a while ago and they're like, oh, you know what? We've just finally had enough. I think they've been okay with whatever he said. They've been letting him go on air with whatever he's wanted to say. I have a harder time believing that like they were just surprised by something and they decided to fire him. So that's my take on that. But I guess if I had the chance to ask Tucker something, it would probably be, do you believe everything that you say, or is it a show? That would be like, are you being honest and authentic? Not are you always right, because people get things wrong. But when you say something, even if you find out, oh, you were wrong later, when you said it, did you mean it, or was it just a show? That would be the question I'd have for him.
That would be a really cool moment to see you do. Alison, can you still hear me all right on the audio?
Yep.
Yep, that's all good. That would be a really good question for you to ask him. And I remember a long time ago, there was a video that came out where Tucker Carlson literally said, that everything he says is just for an act. And, like a lot of, what was that video about when he came out and said that that everything he said was just an act? He doesn't actually believe in what he believes in.
Yes. You're talking about, sorry, my dog's barking in the background. You're talking about the lawsuit. Say that one more time, just so make sure I heard you correctly.
So a long time ago, Tucker Carlson came out. There was a video from 20 years ago, or maybe 10
Yep.
years ago, where Tucker Carlson came out and someone exposed him. And Tucker Carlson said that basically, he's an agent and pretty much, that everything he says is not true and he's just like an actor pretty much.
Well, there was that lawsuit from not too long ago where the lawyers for Fox News Channel said that nobody in their reasonable mind would take Tucker seriously as a journalist, that it's entertainment. That was their
defense. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that comes back, because in my opinion, I think Fox News is just controlled, just like CNN. It comes into, Operation Paperclip, that Fox News and CNN and all that stuff definitely has CIA agents working for them, and definitely, is connected to the Operation Mockingbird media, which is Mark Dice brings that a lot. And it's just, what is your opinion towards that? Do you really believe in that?
Do I really believe in these anchors just being entertainment?
No. Basically, believe in the Operation Mockingbird scheme that a lot of Fox News is controlled by the CIA and CNN.
Yes, I do believe that the three-letter agencies, including the CIA, have a significant influence on the talking points that journalists regurgitate. However, I think that the vast majority of the talking heads who, at the lower level especially, who are repeating those talking points, I think they genuinely believe them. I don't think they are sitting back saying, I just regurgitated CNN. CNN and CIA. I don't think they're sitting there saying, I'm regurgitating CIA talking points. I think they genuinely believe it. They're as manipulated by the propaganda as anybody else. So yes, I do believe that the government, not just the CIA, but I believe the government is constantly messaging through the corporate press to the public. They're sending out press releases. It doesn't have to be as direct and dark as like we have a CIA agent working in the newsroom. I mean, for gosh sakes, they have them as commentators now. CNN's CIA analyst, former CIA director. I mean, they're publicly opining during these news shows, right? So they direct a lot of information even publicly. It doesn't even have to be behind the scenes. But yeah, they're regularly inserting ideas into the narrative by making it sound like this is a hot tip we're giving you, or this is a press release we're putting out there. If you guys want to get this out to your viewers before anybody else, we'll give you the scoop on it. That's how they play the game. So nobody that's like participating in it, I don't think, not nobody, I don't want to say that. Most of the people, they think they're doing the public a service, which is really kind of a dangerous thing, because they feel like instead of doing the nefarious work of government control, they think that they're helping the public. They somehow are able to what's the right word? They're able to balance in their mind that they're doing this and serving the public good. Hey, can you hang on 1 second? I'm sorry. My daughter is crying like really hard out there. I'm going to be right back. Give me 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
No worries. That's all good. So yeah, folks, I definitely think Alison's got a good point, especially when the mainstream media is definitely controlled by BlackRock and CNN. And it is very interesting, to see Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, just walk away pretty much, from the news outlets. I think we're definitely going to see, more people, maybe Tucker Carlson could go to Rumble. Maybe he could go to, something like Twitter Spaces, which would be pretty interesting, because I think Twitter Spaces are also becoming a very big thing. So we'll wait and see. Anyone in the comments, any of you guys have any questions you want to ask me? But anyways, I think it will be very interesting to see what happens. Here, ladies and gentlemen, Alison is back. I was just talking to the audience, trying to improvise. But like you were saying,
sorry about that. I told
no worries,
you,
that's all good.
I'm a full-time mom and my babysitter's here, but I'm just hearing my daughter having a meltdown. I'm like, okay, I need to figure out what's going on. Anyway, we're all good. So yeah, what we're talking about is just like the CIA and infiltration of the news and like 100%. It's not just the CIA. It's all kinds of government agencies have huge communications teams, and they're regularly figuring out.
And it's all connected to BlackRock. BlackRock, they own CNN, they own Fox News.
Yeah, all the corporations in the government, it seems like nowadays are all just kind of one and the same.
I know, right? What so speaking of that, Alison, where do you think that Tucker Carlson's going to go next? Do you think he's going to go to Rumble? Do you think he might join maybe One American News or something like Newsmax? Or I thought of a very good thing where, do you think he might, do something with Elon Musk? Because Elon Musk, is noticing that his Twitter spaces are becoming very big. And if I was Elon Musk myself, I would actually, maybe give Tucker Carlson his own, Twitter space show. And since Twitter spaces are blowing up and, Twitter spaces have a lot of freedom of speech, even though the government, is pretty much, going after Twitter space, people now, because they're trying to restrict that, because a lot of, truth comes out of the Twitter space, especially with the Twitter files. Do you think, he'll maybe go into something like that? Or do you think Tucker Carlson is just going to retire and is just going to walk off? Or do you think he will maybe go into politics? Maybe he will make a presidential run in, let's say, 2020 and 2032.
I've heard him say he doesn't want to go into politics, so I doubt he does that. I don't see him going to One American News. I could see him having a podcast or having a podcast and signing some kind of deal with Rumble. Yeah, I could see something like that. That would be my guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think him going to Rumble would be a good thing, because Rumble, obviously they signed a new deal with Steven Crowder. They're definitely becoming more popular. And I think, for me, at the end of the day, do I trust, Tucker Carlson? Well, of course, not really, because, look, he does good videos, but the truth is about Tucker Carlson. When I was watching, your interview, sorry, my friend Z just brought up something really good. Tucker Cast. Yeah, that would be a good name. I was thinking today, Alison, about a name for Tucker's new show, and I would call it Tucker with the butter. That would be a good name.
That would be funny.
What if you were Tucker's producer, what name would you give to him to call his next show?
Tuckered out.
Yeah, that would be very good. That would be a good name.
I don't get enough sleep.
Fair enough. Alison, about the whole Don Lemon thing, I don't really know much about it. So how did he end up getting fired from CNN? What happened there?
According to his tweet, he had his manager or his agent calling him, telling him about it. So CNN contacted his agent, and then the agent told him, "You're done." So he didn't say exactly what he was specifics about, what the agent was told about why, but I don't think anyone's surprised by that one. The Tucker Carlson thing, I think, came as a surprise, but as far as Don Lemon, I think the writing's been on the wall. He's got the lawsuits he's been dealing with, and or at least a lawsuit specifically. And recently has gotten a lot of negative press about his dealings with women, that he's a misogynist, and he doesn't he's not nice to work with, and he's kind of a narcissist and all this stuff. And so I think he's just been getting a lot of negative press, and maybe CNN felt like now would be a good time to get rid of him. I think maybe they've been wanting to get rid of him for a while, but didn't want to deal with public backlash back when he was a little bit more popular. But I think the tide's turning on him, so maybe they just felt like it was an easier time to get rid of him. I don't know, but he didn't say specifically, just that not only did he get fired, but they didn't even tell him that they told his agent. Which I think is, I used to have an agent, and if they fired me through my agent, it would say something about that they really just didn't want to deal with me, that whether they were afraid I was going to scream at them or whatever, that's not common. That shows that the relationship between the anchor and the management has really devolved if you got to the point where they're not even talking to each other about something like this.
Mhm. Well, when I was watching your video today, what made you thought that Tucker Carlson would want to take a job at CNN? Because in my opinion, if
Oh,
he was to take a job at CNN, that
that was
would be
just a
very
joke.
interesting. Because I would, I mean, well, if he did, well, think of this for a minute, Alison. How would you think the Republican side would react if Tucker Carlson actually did take a job with CNN? Because I think what a trippy reality would we be living in if he did.
Yeah. Um, I was joking with that headline. I was just trying to think of something that was just different than everybody else's headlines because everybody's talking about it. I don't think Tucker's going to go take Don Lemon's job. I- You know, I think the big picture message that I would hope my viewers take away from it all is that this is a lot of entertainment, and I think it's easy to get pulled into it, and it can become engrossing for our attention, like all encompassing for our lives. People will spend hours watching cable news. They'll have their favorite cable news commentator. They won't miss a show. They'll always tune in and they want to hear what the guy's got to say or the ladies got to say. And it affects their real world life, their real relationships, their real decisions with their health, their real decisions politically. Just like a lot of real world decisions are made based on shows. And, even if Tucker Carlson believes a lot of what he says, it's still a show. And so, same with Don Lemon. It's all, and it is all a show. I mean, it's a TV show. It's not to say that it's all totally made up or anything. It's just, it's curated for a specific experience. And I think, to me, it's unfortunate that sometimes we forget that, and then we live our real lives based on these hard lines that we have begun to draw in the sand over what we are being fed, which the people who are feeding it to us, they know it's a show, but we don't know it's a show. Apparently we either forget it or we don't want to believe that. We want to believe in something bigger, and so we attach on to these names and these brands. And I just think it's really unfortunate because the amount of people I know who they don't talk to their family members, their friends, or whoever else, have made life altering decisions based on their tribalism and cable news. I just think it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think the mainstream media definitely has been used as, a way to divide the people, because going back to, Operation Mockingbird, how that's used by the CIA to pretty much divide the
Yeah.
masses. It's a shame, how a lot of the people in the United States are focusing on this issue, whether it's, was someone getting kicked off Turning Point USA, or someone, or one of Trump's mean tweets, or Tucker Carlson, especially, when the fact is they don't know the fact that they have something called the Restriction Act coming in, which is a violation of human rights. There was also, these basically these black people who are protesting, Joe Biden, and was, spreading their support for Russia, and they ended up getting arrested, for pretty much. I watched this good video by Kim. She used to work for the Hall. What's her second name? Kim. She used to work for the Hill. Kim.
Iverson.
Yeah, Iverson. She did a good video where she was pretty much, talking about these black protesters who were outside, and they pretty much got arrested because, they were being accused of being Russian agents, when in fact they weren't. They were from Revolutionary Black. And also, by the way, just to let you know, there's also been news reports that Catholics were also, getting targeted by the Biden administration, which was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Biden says he's for black people, but yet he's doing that. And he also, got the $31 trillion in debt. You've got an inflation crisis. You've got the borders crisis. And now you've got this transgender, sickness that is pretty much, infecting the schools. And it's absolutely madness, because the United States, they're just being distracted, pretty much from so many other things that's working on. And, it's such a shame in today's world how everybody, thinks that these leaders are going to help them. But in fact, a lot of them, are just propaganda artists that just make money off of them. And I really wish, our society was full of more critical thinkers, especially in America, when America, is pretty much, a country that is, if you think about it, many people say it's the new Rome, the new Weimar Republic, but it's just not as good as it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The media landscape is just very, it's very interesting. I guess I know this is not necessarily directly specific to what you just were talking about, but one of the things that I tell people a lot on my live streams is that we tend to look, in the alternative news world, we tend to look at the corporate press, or the mainstream news as it's often called, as like bought and paid for. And so you can't trust anything they say because they've got, the special interests and whatever. But the reality is, like, there are very similar problems in the independent media world. And most of that is driven by viewers, actually, who stage revolts on their particular content creators if they say something they don't like, or they get something wrong, or whatever. So it's a clear message to content creators that you have to stay in your own lane if you want to build a following. You want to make sure you keep your following happy, and you want to keep growing it. They don't want you to say something that's not consistent with what they believe and why they started tuning in. And so I think people need to be really careful about that, because if you left corporate news because you wanted objectivity, which, I'm not sure people really know what, or I don't want to say they don't know what that means. They don't, I don't know if they mean that. They don't mean objectivity in the pure sense, but the reason I don't know if they even really want it in like the way that they think they want it is because I hear people like get so annoyed when, like, I'll have people that'll come on, because I'll talk to anybody, really. I mean, I've had folks I agree with, folks I disagree with, interviews with people who I agree with some of the stuff and disagree with other stuff. And that's most people, I guess, right? I don't agree with everything everybody says. And I'll watch the dissent in the comments section. I can't believe Alison had this person on. I can't believe she talked about this.
Oh, no, it's ridiculous, because you'll have people, who used to be your fans, and then you'll bring someone in, like I've had some people get angry at me because I brought like an economist on, or like a far left person on, or like a feminist, and they might say, and they'll be like, Welsh, why did you bring this guy on? He's a fraud. Right. And it's just like,
right.
It's like, well, this is my show. It's not your show. So yeah, it is what it is. And, Alison, I mean, don't let those people tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want. It's your show. And I think, all this cult-like behavior. Alison, speaking of that, when you look at, all the narrative, when you look at all that narrative, what would you say was the one book you read and the best advice that you ever got from like a news journalist that you were working with, or an agent, like who told you or gave you a lesson on, like, what lesson did they give you, or what book gave you to tell you, what to watch out about working for a news company, and what is the best way to spot like a propaganda artist, and like, you know what I mean by that?
Okay, wait, I heard two questions. Was the first question, what's the best advice that I've gotten from somebody? Or is it specifically what's the best advice I've gotten for how to spot propaganda?
Yeah, like basically, what would you say, like, out of all the books you've read, what would you say, like, was the one philosophical book or book on media that has taught you, how to beware of like propaganda artists, and what body signs should you watch for?
I think Cheryl Atkinson probably was one of the best guests I've ever had talking about that. If people aren't familiar, she used to be an investigative reporter with CBS News. And she's written many books on this topic. So if you're not familiar with her, definitely look her up. She's written a lot. Atkinson, Attkisson. And, oh man, I think probably the best advice is if you see, I don't think she specifically said this, but she's got a lot of good stuff. So watch her, because she's got her own podcast too. And like I said, she's written a bunch of books. I would show you, but I have them all boxed up right now. If you see the same wording and multiple outlets reports, that is a sure sign that there was some kind of press release or phone call made by somebody who's trying to get a specific message out. So like, if the headlines all start looking the same, the first three sentences are the same, they all kind of point in the same direction, I think that should make you question what's going on, especially if it's related to sort of some kind of like high level issue, national security or government, health, that kind of thing. definitely everybody kind of, you brought it up, right? Operation Mockingbird, right? I mean, that's like basically,
Yeah.
you're parroting what you're hearing, and I think that happens quite a bit, and it's a sign that, like, a lot of news comes from press releases where you'll just, we got a press release from the Department of Health today and it says blank, and they won't even question it. They'll just copy and paste it, because when you get information from the government, you don't have to cite it for like copyright, because it's technically government information. So like, that's why you could go to a government website and take a picture from the government website. There's no copyright. You can use it. It's considered, fair use, basically, for everybody to use. So you can copy and paste something from a press release and not even have to say, it came from a press release. Like, it would be copyright violation to copy and paste something from, Cheryl Atkinson's book and put it in your television prompter or put it in your report, but it's not copyright material if it's the government. So a lot of that stuff ends up in the news, and it's not even footnoted as something that came from the government.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a very good point, you brought in. And what would you say, out of Cheryl Anderson's, book she's read, what would you say was your favorite case that she covered?
Oh, man, it's been a while since I was just reading, it's Slander. I'm going to look it up real fast just to make sure I don't say the title wrong.
No worries, take your time. That's all good.
Because she has written so many. I have all of them, actually, but I just want to make sure. Yeah, Slanted. Okay, that's what no, Stonewalled. Stonewalled's the one that I was just reading, and that was the one where she talks about. Okay, one of the most interesting things I thought. I don't want to get you in trouble, but one of the things she actually says on my podcast, and she talks about this in her book, was she was actually reporting on vaccines back in the 90s. And she said it on my pod. I'm trying to be careful because you're on YouTube. I don't want to get you a strike. But back then she was looking into possible links between autism and vaccines, childhood vaccines. And CBS was allowing her to do that story. Now, a nonprofit tried to get it tabled and essentially trashed. And actually, the Carters, Jimmy Carter and his wife, I think they were associated with this nonprofit. But she ended up getting to run it anyway. They asked her, like, do you, is this true? Like, have you vetted this material? You feel confident that this report is true? And she's like, yeah. So they went with it. I don't think that would ever happen now.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah. And one of the more fascinating things that I think I've seen over the last 20 years, which honestly I wasn't even privy to until the last few years, when I started waking up to these issues of medical manipulation and health freedom and whatnot. But vaccines should absolutely be on the table for people to question, not just COVID vaccines, but you just cannot question them. I've told stories before of the two topics that I've been overtly censored on by management: vaccines and climate change. Those are the only two topics that I ever had a manager flat out say, we do not question these topics, I guess. Like, in meaning, we don't allow people to question whether all vaccines are necessary and good or never cause injuries. We don't let people talk bad about vaccines, and we don't let anyone question the popular narrative about climate change either. I never had a manager flat out say you can't go there with any topic except vaccines and climate change. So when Cheryl said that there was actually a time when you could do reports for mainstream media about vaccines, I was shocked, because you could not get away with that now. The COVID stuff has made it a little bit. I think, like, Fox News Channel, Tucker, we're going back to him. Like, he's had some serious disparaging reports about the COVID vaccines. But if you've noticed, still people don't want to talk about childhood vaccinations and the CDC vaccination schedule, which Cheryl was allowed to talk about 20 years ago. So something changed. Something happened over the last 10, 15 years that made that a topic that you're not allowed to discuss. So that, I would say, that's one of the most jarring and still ongoing issue that's still very suppressed. I mean, if you look at the YouTube community guidelines, we associate YouTube censorship with COVID and COVID vaccines. But actually, if you look up, they have a whole community guideline list for just vaccines, generally speaking. Like, you cannot say anything negative about vaccines on YouTube. And not
absolutely not. Because my main channel actually got deleted. Did you know that?
No. Oh, no.
My main channel actually got deleted. So this channel I'm doing it on is my backup, but I'm using Rumble more because YouTube is just garbage. But like you were saying, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that that's the case, is that YouTube has rules against anything disparaging about vaccines, and I didn't know any of that because the spotlight has always been on COVID vaccines. Like, you just can't talk about the COVID vaccine. But actually, no, on YouTube you can talk about vaccines generally if you want to say that they, I won't even say it, cause A, B, C, or D. You can go look up the guidelines and see what they say. What's funny is, like, if you look up the COVID vaccine community guidelines, there are certain things you can't say on YouTube that are just, like, factually accurate about the COVID vaccines. Like, they're undeniably factually accurate, and it's not even debated, but you still can't say it on YouTube. So it's just funny. But I mean, who would have thought vaccines? Like, why? I mean, we all have to ask ourselves, like, why? Of all the topics, if you're not emotionally attached to this topic, you just pull yourself away from that. I think it would be an interesting investigation into why that topic over another topic. Why is that topic the most censored, or why are we so scared to talk about that? It's just interesting to me. Just from a journalism standpoint, why that?
So, Alison, we can keep going for maybe another 19 minutes or 14 minutes. What'll be good for you?
Yeah, I can do another probably 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay, Alison, I watched your video on the transgender shooter from Nashville. And, one thing that really has annoyed me and has annoyed a lot of people is there was also another shooting that recently happened in Vegas, and apparently was someone, who actually wanted to, get at Christians, but they released that manifesto. But with a transgender shooter, in the Nashville shootings, why do you think they have not released the manifesto yet? And what is your reaction to all of the media outlets saying that, this guy is a victim of white supremacy, or he's a victim, this is a sad day for the trans community, and the media was just ignoring, the young babies that were killed, the young kids that were killed in that tragic shooting, which was disgusting and gross for the mainstream media to ignore that. What is your opinion towards why they haven't released the manifesto yet, and why do you think it's taking so long?
Well, one option, like you said, is because it doesn't fit a particularly popular narrative about people these days. So that's definitely possible. The other thing I've heard about this school is the potential connections. There's a lawsuit filed. Somebody posted this on Twitter, so I cannot verify. I've been thinking about looking into it for my channel, but there's some kind of lawsuit about, I'm trying to be very careful what I say. It's like not the school itself specifically, but the Presbyterian church in that area and certain leaders that are connected to the school, and we'll call it inappropriate behavior with children. How about I leave it at that? And illegal. Okay. So illegal behavior, not just inappropriate, illegal. So there were questions about like what was happening behind the scenes too there that like, I don't know. And some high up people, big name people that we've heard of before. So was it that? Like, is there stuff in that manifesto that people are, don't want us to hear about? It may not be what everyone thinks. I've come to believe that if there are two very obvious sides arguing the loudest voices, the truth is probably not either one of them. That often there's a third or fourth option, and that the loud narratives that are being pushed forward, because keep in mind, like, the internet, the internet's full of all kind of information. There's code and then real people who are curating it so that certain voices or certain opinions get the most access or the most views. And I have just come to believe that the ones that we're spoon-fed, whether it's this thesis or this antithesis, these two contrasting opinions, and we get sucked into one side or the other, but these are the two loudest voices, that there's something else going on. I don't know if that makes me a conspiracy theorist or what, but that's another thing I tell people to watch out for. If you when you're talking about propaganda and spotting it, is if you see like very, very opposite but loud and almost overly obvious arguments, I guess, of opinion that are like, if you feel like there's just these two very obvious dichotomies, then I would say, like, maybe consider the fact that there might be a third option that you're not seeing, and that fighting and arguing is serving another purpose, whether that is to continue to push division and keep you from looking somewhere else, I guess. So as far as that particular case, I don't know, but it may not be what we think. It may not be just that there was stuff in there that would make trans people look bad. It may have something to do with the lawsuit that I just brought up. I'll send it to you in DM. You can look at it and then decide if you want to cover it. Like I said, I'm being careful with what I say because I saw it on Twitter. I'm not totally sure what's going on. I mean, it seems like a legit lawsuit, but people are wondering what's going on, and that was definitely not discussed at all in connection to what was going on. I don't know. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Alison, one thing I'm thinking about doing on my show, so I had a girl on called Chloe Cole. Do you know who Chloe Cole is?
I don't think so.
She's been on the Jordan Peterson. She was a detransit. She was like a detransitioner who transitioned. Yeah. And great interview. You should definitely have her on for a show. I'll send a good word about you so you can bring her on your show. I think it would be good. She talked to me about her story, and when I heard that story, just seeing these kids just being used, and being like told that, oh, they're not a boy and not a girl, and like the left going on about how pretty much that like telling people that these hormone blockers and these like having sex change surgeries at 13 and 14 is just a good idea, and that it's love and it's healthcare, but it's really not. It's not healthcare. Have you had like any detransition on your show before?
No, but I would be interested to do something like that. I'm just, I'm not totally sure who to reach out to. And then also, like, one person I saw that made me a little nervous about it, because I saw somebody was somebody who was detransitioning, and they tweeted, "No, I don't want to come on your show, and F you for asking." It ruined my life, basically. I don't want to just be like your dancing monkey, I guess, who comes on and talks about it. And so it made me think, like, gosh, here we are as podcasters, we're asking people to do interviews, we're fascinated by the topics. These are people's real lives. And, it made me think, how do you ask somebody to do an interview about something that is so personal, that, I don't know, you're going after it because you truly want to understand. It's not like you're not like necessarily want to make it look like it's like, oh, we're just trying to get them on because we want a good show or whatever. No, I'm genuinely interested in this topic. But I also, understand that, like, a lot of these people who are transitioning and have been getting a lot of attention, I mean, people are like messaging them constantly. I can see how that becomes overwhelming. So, like, then I struggle
absolutely,
with, I don't want to add to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's fine. I understand. Like when I brought Chloe Cole on, and she, basically said to me, she was on Jordan Peterson's show, and she was in tears. And I said to her, "Hey, don't worry about it. If you want to go on Jordan Peterson and cry and have a cry, that's fine. There's nothing wrong. You're there. That's very brave of you. To bring up the tears, because sometimes you have to cry. You have to let the frustration out. So, like if I had a guest who came on my show and cried, I mean, I wouldn't judge them. That's how they feel. Alison, when you look at all like the detransitioner stories that you've seen, what would you say is the one that really like got you emotional out of all of them?
Of all the stories that I covered, you mean as a podcaster or like when I was in TV news?
Yeah, no, like detransitioner, the ones you've probably seen in the last few years, since this thing has become a bigger thing in the West.
Detransitioning specifically. Is there a specific story of somebody detransitioning that has really touched me? Is that what the question is?
Yeah, that one.
I don't think so. I can't think of one that over others that I would say was any more or less. I don't even know what the right word is for it. It's just it's just terrible. I mean, I don't even know what the. To me it is. It's there is, as a mother, there is nothing. There is nothing more important than a kid being able to trust that their parents are protecting them, I guess, from harm. I mean, that is like the job of a parent. And not to say that parents are perfect, right? And that, we don't unintentionally or intentionally, I guess in some cases, like, things inflict harm, like we say something that we didn't mean or whatever. Like nobody's perfect, but this it's not even just like, it's the pressure, I think, that's put on parents now to not even ask questions about all this stuff or to think through this,
and recently you probably heard the news. Sorry about speaking over you. And you probably heard the news I wanted to bring up about in Washington D.C., where they passed that if a parent criticizes and questions their kid wanting to change gender, they'll get sent to prison, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Sent to prison?
Or they'll get jail time or something.
My state, Washington State, they passed a bill which still has to go through a few more iterations of, like, I think it has to go through the House now, or it's not signed into law or anything yet. But the bill was basically, if your kid runs away from home because you wouldn't take him to get gender reassignment surgery or to get hormone blockers or therapy or whatever, that the state basically doesn't have to tell you where your kid is. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fair enough. Thank you for. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So that's a crazy story too. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I think that's the most disheartening about all of this, is that parents have been just messaged over and over and over again that they're doing the opposite of protecting their kids by just saying, hang on a second, wait, wait, like, is all of this what the media or what the government tells me? Is this all true? Like, you can't even seek out alternative viewpoints now without being called a transphobe. My friend Brandy Cruz, who came on a couple days ago to talk about this bill, she's questioning it as a journalist, which she should be doing, and she's got all these people calling her a right-wing extremist. And I mean, it's just crazy. So, like, so all these parents are pressured to stay silent. And you know what? You said, like, they're going to throw you in jail. Well, they're not yet, but it's possible that they may rip your kid out of your home at some point. I hate to bring up the vaccines things again with this, but anything that the mainstream news or government picks up on is they want to decide is abuse. Like, they've come after doctors for veering away from from these, established protocol that they've decided is like what everybody has to do, and they'll take the doctor's license. It isn't a stretch of the imagination that they would take your kid for either the gender thing or take your kid over vaccines. I mean, we're getting to a point where it's not even going to be just this whole idea of your kid runs away and we won't tell you where they are. I believe what Brandy said, which is the next step is that they take your kid out of your home. And that's terrifying. I don't, any parent, even if the parents agree that, that kids should have gender reassignment surgery at 12 years old, even if they, I don't know why they would agree that the government should have this kind of power. Because it's just a matter of time before their thing that they're so concerned about, the government could do that too. So you got to be really careful about the kind of power that you give the government over your parenting and your family. And a lot of people right now are being manipulated to hand over a considerable amount of parental rights to the government. And those of us who are, we're giving up our health freedom, our rights as patients of doctors. I mean, we're giving up our free speech rights. We're giving left and right, wherever they can sell us that there's danger, there's danger or abuse or whatever scary word they want to use. Then we go, oh, okay, well, babysit us, please tell us what to do. And they do. And we don't think about the consequences about where it's going to take us down the road, instead of saying, well, wait a second, maybe I'd rather take the risk that comes with the freedom than the risk that comes with the control. Because to me, I would rather take the risk with the freedom. And people think that there's no risk with government control for some reason. And that's a huge lie.
So, Alison, I was thinking we could finish off now. Is there anything else you would like to say for the audience for today?
No, I really appreciate your having me on, and thanks everyone for dealing with the fact that I have kids that, don't necessarily. I have a fly flying around in my office, all kinds of crazy things happening. It's my show is always unpredictable, but I appreciate everybody being patient, and thanks for having me back on.
It was a pleasure having you, Alison. You're a very good, person. You're very cool what you do with your content. Very good content. It's very awesome to watch. I enjoy watching your shows. They're very good. Where can people find you, Alison?
Well, the easiest place, if you're like on YouTube, you can just go to my YouTube channel, and then there's links in the description box and the pinned comment. Excuse me. For other places to find me. The best place is Locals. That's where I'm the most active. AlisonMorrow.locals.com. Alison has 1 L. And find me there. Yeah. But you can find all the links to my other platforms by just going to my YouTube channel.
Well, thank you for coming on, Alison. It was a pleasure having you. And I just want to tell everybody, please go and subscribe to Alison's YouTube channel, her Rumble, her Locals. She's a very good content creator, very talented, very good journalist. You'll really enjoy her videos. It's worth the watch. Please give her a like and subscribe. And everybody, please remember to give the Welsh Republic, podcast here on YouTube a like and subscribe, and please give my Rumble, a like and subscribe too. Sorry about, the fact that my face is not showing today because my laptop unfortunately is broken, but I am going to be sorting that problem out. But anyways, I just want to say to everybody, thank you for joining the Welsh Republic Podcast episode 107 today. Have a nice day, everybody. Take care. God bless you all. Have a nice day.